On the Way Home, Part 2, August 21st. It rained hard most of the night and was still pouring down when the time came to get up. Manley put on his rubber coat, started the fire, and put water on to heat, then fed our horses. By that time, the rain was no more than a drizzle, so I got out and made breakfast. We ate in the wagon out of the wet. Roads are muddy, but sky is clear overhead. We went through Prescott, only a little station, met a family of emigrants who have spent the last 2 months traveling in southwest Missouri. They do not like it at all down there. The man said, "Right there is the place to go if a man wants to bury himself from the world and live on hoe cake and clabber." And the woman agreed with him. We passed another covered wagon stop by the road, and those folks are on their way to Missouri. The whole country is just full of emigrants going and coming. Fort Scott seemed to be crowded with them. We reached Fort Scott at 6 o'clock, and a man there said that 15 emigrant wagons went along that street yesterday. Fort Scott is a bower of trees. The houses look clean and contented. The business buildings are handsome. The country around Fort Scott looks like it might be very good country. Crops are good where there are any, but there's lots of idle land and many places are gone back. It seems that the people are shiftless, but you never can tell. A man said this country is worthless, and when Manley said that it looked to him like good land, he said, "Oh yes, the land will raise anything that's planted, but if you can't sell what you raise for enough to pay back the cost of raising it, what's the land worth?" Coal is lying around on top of the ground and cropping out of every bank. At the coal mines, or coal banks as they call them, the coal is worth $5 a bushel. We received 3 letters at Fort Scott, 2 from home, a little way south of the city. We camped beside the road. August 22nd. A good start at 7:15, and this morning we're driving through pretty country. Crops look good. Oats are running 30 to 60 bushels to the acre, wheat from 10 to 30. All the wood you want can be had for the hauling, and coal is delivered to the house for $1.25 a ton. Land is worth from $10 an acre up, unimproved, and $15 to $25 when well improved. 12 miles from Fort Scott. Exactly at 2:24 p.m., we crossed the line into Missouri, and the very first cornfield we saw beat even those Kansas cornfields. We met 7 emigrant wagons leaving Missouri. One family had a red bird, a mockingbird, and a lot of canaries in cages hung under the canvas in the wagon with them. We had quite a chat and heard the mockingbird sing. We camped by a house in the woods. August 23rd. Started out at 7:30. The country looks nice this morning. At 9:35, we came to Pedro, a little town on one side of the railroad tracks, and just across the tracks on the other side is the town of Liberal. A man in Pedro told us that one of the finest countries in the world will be around Mansfield. In the late afternoon, we went through Lamar, the nicest small city we have seen, 2,860 inhabitants. It's all so clean and fresh, all the streets set out to shade trees. We camped among oak trees, not far from a camp of immigrants from Kentucky. Beautiful sturdy oak trees on both sides of the road. August 24th. On the road bright and early, 7:20. Weather cool and cloudy, looks like rain. Went through Canova in the morning. It's a little place. At noon we're going through Golden City, a nicer little place. The country looks good, but judging from the weeds in the gardens and fields, the people are shiftless. This is a land of many springs and clear brooks. Some of the earth is yellow and some is red. The road is stony often. We went through another little town, Lockwood, at 4 o'clock and camped by a swift-running little creek of the clearest water. It is most delicious water to drink, cold with a cool, snappy flavor. Except in the towns, we have seen only one schoolhouse so far in Missouri. We drove in the rain this afternoon, for the first time since we left Dakota. It was a good, steady, pouring rain, but we kept dry in the wagon, and the rain stopped before camping time. August 25th. We left camp at 7:35. It rained again in the night, and the road was muddy, but after a few miles, we came to country where it did not rain, so the road was dry. The uplands are stony, but there are good bottomland farms. Much timber is in sight, oaks, hickories, walnuts, and there are lots of wild crab apples, plums, and thorn apples. In South Greenfield, 2 land agents came out and wanted us to stop here. One was C.C. Aiken, the man who located Sherwin. He said Mr. Sherwin was here only a week ago. He has just gone. Mr. Sherwin looked Wright County over thoroughly and came back to Cedar County and located here. But finally, Mr. Aiken said there was just as good land in Wright County as Mr. Sherwin bought. Well, we are in the Ozarks at last, just in the beginning of them, and they are beautiful. We passed along the foot of some hills and could look up their sides. The trees and rocks are lovely. Manly said we could almost live on the looks of them. We stopped for dinner just before we came to the prettiest part, by the side of a swiftly running stream, Turnback River. We forded it through the shallow water, all rippling and sparkling. There was another clear stream to cross before we came to Everton at 5 o'clock. Here we stopped to get the horses shod, but there was not time to shoe them all today, so we camped by a creek in the edge of town for over Sunday. August 26th. A day for writing, reading, sleeping. We let the children wade in the shallow creek within our sight. I spent almost the whole time writing to the home folks about the country since Fort Scott and these hills and woods. August 27th. Out of camp at 7:10. We like this country. A man tried to get us to settle just across the road from him and said we could buy that 40 for $700. It was good land. We forded Little Sauk River and came through Ash Grove, a lively little town noted for its lime kiln. 2 new brick blocks are going up on Main Street. Camped 12 miles from Springfield. Manly was unhitching the team when a man with his wife and daughter in a covered wagon drove up and wanted to know where he could water his mules. They live 14 miles east of Springfield in Henderson County and were going to visit the woman's brother in Ash Grove. After we had talked a while, they said they would like to camp by us if we could sell them a little meat to cook. They had not intended to camp and had brought nothing to eat. We let them have some meat and they used our camp stove, so we got quite well acquainted. They are good, friendly folks. Their name is Davis. After the chores were done, they brought over a large watermelon and we called the coolies to come, and all of us ate the whole big melon. You can buy a 20-pound watermelon here for 5 cents. August 28th. Left camp at 6:28. Good road from Ash Grove all the way to Springfield. Not hilly or very stony. This is the Ozark Plateau, and the country looks much like prairie country, though there are groves and timber always along the streams. Arrived in Springfield at 9:25. It is a thriving city with fine houses and 4 business blocks standing around a town square. The stores are well stocked and busy. Manly hitched the horses, and we bought shoes for Rose and myself, a calico dress for me, and a new hat for Manly. It did not take much time, and we drove right along through the city. We were out of it before noon. It has 21,850 inhabitants, and it's the nicest city we've seen yet. It is simply grand. We could see 2 straight miles down Walnut Street, a very little downgrade with a large shade trees on each side, large handsome residents, and the pavement as smooth and clean as can be. 5 miles east of Springfield is Jones Spring. The water is clear as glass, and it comes pouring out of a cave in a ledge of rock. At its mouth, the cave is 4 feet high and 10 feet wide, and nobody knows how far back it goes. Manly and Mr. Cooley went quite a distance back into it and threw stones as far as they could throw them, and the stones fell plunk into water far back in the dark. The water pours out of the cave 14 inches deep and runs away over the stones among the trees, a lively little creek. We were told that 7 miles southeast of Jones Spring, a stream comes out of a cave so large that you can keep rowing a boat back into it for half a day. After crossing Pearson's Creek, we met, one day after another, 10 immigrant wagons leaving Missouri. We camped on the edge of Henderson, a little inland town on the bank of Spring Brook. August 29th. We left camp at 7:10. We are driving along a lively road through the woods. We are shaded by oak trees. The farther we go, the more we like this country. Parts of Nebraska and Kansas are well enough, but Missouri is simply glorious. There, Manly interrupted me to say, "This is beautiful country." The road goes uphill and down, and it is rutted and dusty and stony, but every turn of the wheels changes our view of the woods and the hills. The sky seems lower here, and it is the softest blue. The distances in the valleys are blue whenever you can see them. It is a drowsy country that makes you feel wide awake and alive, but somehow contented. We went through a little station on the railroad, and a few miles farther on we came to a fruit farm of 400 acres. A company owns it. There are 26,000 little young trees already set out in rows striping the curves of the land, and the whole 400 acres will be planted as soon as possible. Acres of strawberries and other small fruit are in bearing. We stopped to look our fill of the sight, and Manly fell into conversation with some of the company's men. They told him of a 40 he can buy for $400, all cleared and into grass except for 5 acres of woods, and with a good ever-flowing spring, a comfortable log house, and a barn. We drove through Seymour in the late afternoon. The main streets of towns here are built around open squares, with the hitching posts surrounding the square. In the office of the Seymour paper, the Enterprise, a girl was setting type. A man spoke to us who had lived years in Dakota near Sioux Falls. He has a brother living there now. He is farming near Seymour. He said the climate here can't be beat. We will never want to leave these hills, but it will take us some time to get used to the stones. Oh no, we are not out of the world nor behind the times here in the Ozarks. Why, even the cows know the latest. 2 of them feeding along the road were playing Ta-ra-ra boom da. The little cow's bell, ta-ra-ra, and then the bigger cow's bell clanged boom, da, I said. "What is that tune they are playing?" And we listened. It was as plain as could be, tones and time and all, and so comical. We drove on singing ta-ra-ra boom da along the road. We passed several springs and crossed some little brooks. The fences are snake fences of split logs, and all along them in the corners fruit grows wild. There are masses of blackberries and seedling peaches and plums and cherries and luscious-looking fruits ripening in little trees that I don't know. Special excerpt. These are wild persimmons and pawpaws. Rose Wilder Lane. A lavishness of fruit growing wild. It seems to be free for the taking. We could not reach Mansfield today. We camped by a spring 10.5 miles short of it. In no time at all, Rose and I filled a quart pail with big juicy blackberries. They're growing wild in big patches in the woods, ripening and falling off and wasting. 6 more emigrant wagons camped around the spring before dark. Seasoned oak wood, sawed, split, and delivered and corded, brings $1 a cord here. August 30th, 1894. Hitched up and going at 7:10. The road is rough and rocky through the ravines, but not so bad between them, and there are trees all the way. We're passing through the Memphis fruit farms, 1,500 acres, part of the way on both sides of the road. It is a young orchard, rows upon rows of little trees, apple and peach, curving over the plowed hills. Some covered wagons came up behind us, and we came up behind some ahead. All the teams were going slowly, holding back downhill and pulling uphill. At 11:30 we came into Mansfield in a long line of 10 emigrant wagons. Mansfield is a good town of 300 or 400 inhabitants and a good central location where it should grow fast. The railroad runs on one side of the square, and 2 stagecoach lines go from the depot, one south to the county seat of Douglas County, the other north to the county seat of Wright County. There is everything here already that one could want, though we must do our worshiping without a congregational church. There's a Methodist church and a Presbyterian. There is a good school. Around the square, 2 general stores, 2 drug stores, the bank, a Boston racket store, a livery stable, and a blacksmith shop near. There are several nice large houses and big yards with trees. South of the tracks is as good as north of them. 2 or 3 big houses and a flour mill is there by a mill pond. camped in the woods in the western edge of town, and this afternoon Manly looked over one place for sale, but was not exactly suited.